Welcome to the ITSP Magazine Podcast Network. You're tuning into an episode of the Redefining Society Podcast, hosted by Marco Ciappelli. Let's face it, the future is now. We live in a hybrid analog-digital society, and we must stop ignoring it or pretending that technology is not affecting us. The line between the physical and virtual worlds has become a figment of our imagination. On it, we are continually performing a dangerous balancing act, juggling convenience, privacy, freedom, security, technology, society, culture, and even the future of humanity. There is no better place than here, and no better time than now, to muse on our relationship with technology and how to redefine what society means in this new age.
Black Cloak provides concierge cybersecurity protection to corporate executives and high-net-worth individuals to protect against hacking, reputational loss, financial loss, and the impacts of a corporate data breach. Learn more at blackcloak.io. BugCrowd's award-winning platform combines actionable contextual intelligence with the skill and experience of the world's most elite hackers to help leading organizations identify and fix vulnerabilities, protect customers, and make the digitally connected world a safer place. Learn more at bugcrowd.com. Devo unlocks the full value of machine data for the world's most instrumented enterprises. The Devo Data Analytics Platform addresses the explosion in volume of machine data and the crushing demands of algorithms and automation. Learn more at devo.com.
Hello, this is Marco Ciappelli with Redefining Society Podcast on ITSP Magazine. And, we keep redefining society. And the more and more we talk lately, I feel like we're mostly redefining artificial intelligence and ChatGPT and everything that it's doing. Everybody's talking about it. We're talking about how to use it, how not to use it. We are making big claims of comparison with the creation and the atomic bomb and how a big threat is for our society. But you know me, I don't like to be on that side of dystopian, although I do have fun with dystopic view and scenarios here and there. But I try to be objective. And I think that one of the good things to do for objectivity is to look at where we come from, to look at the past, because we were joking here with Nigel, my guest today, that I'm going to let introduce in a few seconds, that it seems like all of a sudden, like every other technology, honestly, it's just come out of nowhere. And all of a sudden we have large language models, we have AI, we have airplanes and everything, but people have been working on it for a long time. It's not an overnight success. It took a while to get here. So this is what we're going to talk about here today with Nigel, and also about where we're standing and the future and the ethics of it. So enough about the introduction. I want to hear the introduction from Nigel, who you are, what are you up to, and why do you like to talk about ethics and AI? How about that?
Sounds good, Marco. Great to be on the podcast. So, I'm Nigel Cannings. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Intelligent Voice. We're a software company based here in London. I've been working in and around natural language processing, language models, and that sort of stuff for a very long time, actually. About 16, 17 years now since I started in the NLP, natural language processing game. I trained as a lawyer, so I've been around language a very long time, but became a technologist when I realized that technologists were more fun than lawyers, which is not saying much, but they are very slightly. We're talking a lot at the moment about AI and the use of GPUs, graphic cards, and so on to do all this incredible processing. But I was using these things 10 plus years ago to try and turn speech into text. And I sort of accidentally invented what they now call inferencing for speech on GPU back in 2013. So I've been around this technology a very, very long time now. And these language models we talk about, people have been using in speech for 30 years. As you say, it looks like it's just kind of exploded. So I'm really interested to kind of look at where these things have come from, why it's suddenly taken over the world now, and also, what does it really mean for humanity? Is it is it an internet level event, something which is so profound that it's a paradigm shift, or is it something which is going to end up being a little bit more incremental and not perhaps as scary as everyone thinks?
Yeah, and I feel like that's something that, I mean, we hear both sides, right? I mean, you can open the internet today and look at different magazine and papers, academic research, letters that everybody sign, and we need to pause. But in the meantime, we're the one going on and pushing forward with this, even if we tell you we need to pause. So that's another conversation there. But I mean, there is the utopian vision and the dystopian vision, which I think is always nice to look for me into these two extreme. The reality of things is, for me, is where we are now. And because I have you, that you've been on this for a while, what was the eureka moment that made this big difference between what you were working on, recognizing language and translate it into text, into actually create something that is simply putting words one after another, but it seems like it's intelligent. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it does. It does appear to be intelligence, and I mean, this idea of a language model, as I said, has been around for a long time. So, I've been working in speech recognition for 13 years now, and we used to use language models to try and help effectively determine what was the next word. So, I always use the example, if someone was saying the cat sat on you'd expect the next word to be mat. And so we used to use statistical models to say, well, if you've got the choice between the word rat and mat, you're going to pick mat because that's the most likely one. So those statistical models have been used in speech recognition for a really long time. And actually, we call them language models, So you can begin to understand where the concept of a large language model came. It's something which was really little, and now they're really big. And we were trying to predict one or two words. We used bigrams and trigrams, 2 and 3 and 4 word sequences to work this out. And now we're getting into context windows of 100,000 for things like Claude. So, things have changed. But, bearing in mind that even a couple of years ago, the concept of a large language model was still something which was really only known to data scientists. So, 2016, people were beginning to look at the transformer models and this sort of stuff. 2018 was really the birth, the genesis of this new technology. And Google had a model called BERT. And BERT was the first really kind of good open source language model. But you could only predict about 5 or 6 words, 10 at the outside if you were having a really good day. But that was really the foundation of this work. But again, data scientists knew it. My team, we used it for a whole load of stuff. We were doing emotion recognition and all sentiment recognition, all of this type of stuff using that. Where the change came and what really changed it, and it was something that OpenAI did that was brilliant, really, is they went from turning these things into something which could just predict the next sequence of words from a previous sequence of words to actually understanding human instruction, and understanding human instruction in a way that humans wanted to interact with them. And it's this idea of RLHF, reinforcement learning with human feedback, is something they invented, which was really sticking a human in the loop of training these models. Now, it was brilliant, but also, going back to the ethics question, there were some massive problems in terms of how they assessed the data that came out of it. You've probably seen the same articles I have, that a lot of the data that was being processed and cleansed by OpenAI was processed by workers in Kenya who were being paid next to nothing, and were being effectively forced to read the most graphic pornography, the most awful descriptions of bestiality and pedophilia and all of these things. And they were effectively slave labor. They had no choice in this. And so, whilst OpenAI did an incredible thing in terms of moving the needle in terms of where these models could go, there was a great human cost along the way to getting us past that eureka moment and to where we are now.
So apart from that of course it's a big issue. There is many other big issues with the fact that you force people. Actually, I'm learning this now. To be honest, I haven't heard of it, but you also harvest tons and tons of content that you don't necessarily apparently have the right to, and that's where the line gets a little blurry, because I talk a lot with artists and people in the video game industry and writing books, and it's like humans by nature, we do look at things. We don't just, we're not born with an idea, right? We educate ourselves, and we are in a way the consequence of our experience. And so when we touch on that side of things, what is your perspective on it? I mean, in a way, it's like, how do you educate without actually getting things from other, and where you become the line of the lawyer in you that it becomes a legal issue for copyright?
It's a really interesting question, this one, because I ponder this one quite a lot, because I'm on the slightly more libertarian side of this one, I have to say, because I've got a real issue with how we regulate these things, and I think I think that's a separate question as to how you build them. Regulation of their use, regulation of the output, thinking about what they do is one thing, but where you actually get the content from, if you think of AI as like a really big human brain, effectively, of course it's got to end up reading the internet, right? It's the only way it's going to do it. And there's something, if you and I had the capability and the time to read and absorb the internet, we would. Because
that's my dream.
Exactly. In a heartbeat, you would do it. And it's only really a lack of the fact that you and I are not going to live to be 1 million, Marco, right? It's really sad, but we're not. But if we were, we would go out and we'd absorb this knowledge. So I actually think, and the same way, you can't complain about scraping the internet for artificial intelligence on the one side, and then do a Google search on the other, and not see the irony of that. I mean, the fact is, the only reason why the modern internet exists in the way it does, really, is because Google and other search engines went out and took every single piece of content they could and turned it into a knowledge base. We have access to knowledge in a way that, when I was at school, I remember if I wanted to find something out, I used to have to get on my bicycle and I had to cycle to the local library, hoping it was open, in the rain quite often, and open an encyclopedia. And 99.9% of all the essays I ever wrote were just cribbed effectively from the Encyclopedia Britannica. So it's this massive explosion of knowledge. So no, I think that, frankly, if it's out there on the internet, if the content is there, then effectively it's pretty fair game. And I think shutting the stable door at this point, people like Reddit and Twitter, now known as X, it's kind of saying that you can't have it, I think is just it's churlish. I think we do need to allow that to happen. I really do. So no, I'm very much on the side of that. Where it gets interesting, though, is in that question, and you touched upon it, for things like musicians. So what I suppose the question becomes, where does influence stop and where does copyright infringement start? Because how many artists, if you look at the biography of artist X, it doesn't matter who it was, they will all say, well, I was deeply inspired by Bob Dylan or whoever it might be, or the Beatles, or I sound like an old white man here, don't I? But I mean, it's but whoever it
Sounds
might
like
be.
you're about my age.
Yeah, exactly. So and so that influence is everywhere, and it has been throughout the history of these things. If you copy something, and copying something, you literally got to copy it, then absolutely right. If you spew out the same words from an Elvis Costello song, then yes, you shouldn't be able to do that. But each one of these artists has been influenced by the past. And our job as humans, I think, is to demonstrate to the machines that they're great at inspiring creativity, but they're not a substitute for it. An AI is never going to experience an emotional breakup. They're not going to break up with their partner. They're not going to experience death. And we take so much inspiration anyway from the natural world, from things around us. We're very good as humans at taking inspiration from things. You'd never suggest that because you heard birds tweet in a particular way and it inspired a song, that somehow that wasn't creative. The birds themselves have no intelligence. So I think of the birds in the trees as being the AI. They're kind of providing a level of inspiration, or the way stars are arranged in the sky. Those are naturally occurring phenomena. Our job as humans is to say to the AI, yeah, nice, but we can do better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I love this perspective because it's honest, and I have to say, overall, I'm in agreement with you. So, and I love how you use that quite, difference and the lining between influence versus infringement. And that's really the case for me. So from a technological perspective, for people that, again, looking for that eureka moment, you said the invention of the approach to be different, but was it also possible because we have much more powerful computer? We can run incredible harvesting of the internet. We can run algorithms that we couldn't run with the power of computing we had a few years ago. Is that also one of the convergence of technology and ideas that allows to do it, the next step?
I think the irony is going to be that we're going to discover in a few years' time that we didn't need all the processing power.
Okay.
Right. I mean that's the stupid thing about it. So we're and
all right, explain me that.
Okay. And actually, think about anything, right? So if I remember the very first mobile phones. I can remember walking around the city of London and seeing people carrying these massive bricks of battery, right? You remember those things, huge things, the Motorola phones with the thing beside it. And over the course of 20 or 30 years, we've gone from that to something which can do 100,000 times more, that will sit in your pocket and will gives you talk time of 2 days. So all technology, be it software or hardware, someone always finds a way of making it significantly more efficient. So, at the moment, we are spending millions of dollars to train these foundational models. And that is a real problem, because, you need to have 1,000 or 2,000 GPUs. And I spent a lot of my life around GPUs and GPU cards. When you look at that, that's a lot of racks of servers. That's a lot of building space. That's a massive amount of electricity. And that only, I can't afford that. You need to be a Meta or a Google or an IBM or someone like that to be able to afford that. So, that's a problem for us, the fact that people need to do it. And again, the same with the data. Actually, the data that you need is not internet size, which is good. So people are building these fantastic models with terabytes of data rather than petabytes of data. So that's good. So actually, the amount of data required to train a model is within a human grasp, but the amount of processing power isn't. So yeah, what's happened is we've got to the point where there has been a kind of convergence between the availability of processing power. The algorithms themselves are actually very simple, but they have big problems within them. One of the reasons why it takes so much power is because effectively in these models, you're trying to make, if you've got a sequence of words, you're trying to understand how each word relates to every other word and how important that is. So every time you add another sequence of words to it, the processing time goes up quadratically. So, normally we expect a workload to go up in a linear fashion. I start one process and it takes X amount of time. If I add another process, it's 2X because it's just twice as much work. Whereas in language modeling terms, these large language models, it kind of goes through the roof. So we're at a point at the moment where we've managed to do this. It's required massive resources to do it. You're absolutely right. Huge resources. But I think that in 5 or 10 years' time, we will look back on this and we will laugh and say, God, how stupid those people were back in the early 2020s to have used 1,000 GPUs or 5,000 GPUs to train this thing. Because we now know you can do it on a laptop. And of course, what that will mean is the next big rise, whatever that might be. And I don't think it's AGI, not yet. But there will be other forms of intelligence that will come along out of this, will then take the next 1,000 GPUs to build. So, it's always the way with technology. You go over a hump, and then you kind of skate downhill very nicely.
I love this, and it made me think about a parallel that I want to go into this, because one of the talking points that I have on the notes with you is regulation of AI worth it? And I'm not asking you the question yet. I want to make a comment first. When you said you can run this model, you can build your own API on your own laptop and create your own little artificial intelligence. I mean, for fun, on ITSP Magazine, we created our own tape 3, we call it, and it's our assistant and guide. And you put it on the website, you create a knowledge base, and and it answer question about what we do. I mean, sometimes it's great, sometimes like, where did you find out this? The classic little hallucination. And I think it's great, but I'm running kind of a parallel here with democratizing this. When the internet became accessible to everyone, Mozilla, Netscape, I was excited. I was in college at the time. I was like, this is the best thing for democracy, for culture. I want to go to the Louvre tonight. And it wasn't, of course, 3D or anything like that. And then social media came. Everybody's a journalist. Everybody put crap out there in the internet. And so on one side, the access is great. On the other side, too much access, maybe it's not. So do you foresee an issue with access for AI to everyone to become, again, this kind of, well, it's great, but it's unregulated? So overall, what's your position on the regulation side?
So yeah, I mean, this goes back to me with my lawyer hat on again. I mean, one of my real concerns about trying to regulate AI is regulations on this sort of thing are always years behind where the technology already is. We're already thinking about the new thing. We're well ahead in terms of thinking what's coming next. And so, we're seeing, and we are seeing some, what regulation should do is it should spark a conversation. The idea should be to make people step back and think about what it is they want out of the way they use data. And that's really what this comes down to. It's about how we use people's data. And there's still a big conversation that we have to have in society before we can even have the AI regulation one. And that is, are we willing to sell our data for free, in effect? Do we accept the fact that every single scrap of data that goes into social media, that goes into our email, that goes into anywhere else, is effectively accessible to big business to sell more stuff to us? So because the AI thing kind of, I mean, to me, the dangers of giving an ordinary person access to AI is relatively low. I mean, what I'd like to think and where I'd like to take it is actually to say, how do we help people better protect their own data to start with, right? Because if I could take my data and put my arms around it and say that's Nigel's data, and I then had access to AI to query and manipulate that data, that would be amazing. If I could, and I was looking at Tape 3 before the podcast, it enables you to look at the content that you guys have created and ask questions about it. I mean, that is an amazing thing to be able to do. And so I would like to be in a position where I, as Nigel, can take all of Nigel's emails and all of Nigel's social media posts and all of this stuff and actually manipulate it in some way. Inspire me for my next email. I want to write an essay on something. But I can't do that because at the moment all of my email data is controlled by Google, by Outlook. This is the thing. So I don't actually think that AI itself is going to be as dangerous as we think it is. I don't think that the regulators really understand what they're regulating. I think that they will be much better off, as I said, looking at the underlying issues of data in our society, the security of that data, and the ability to give in. I would pay, Marco, I would pay to have the ability to take all of my data and put it somewhere securely. To be able to, a lot of the work that we've been doing over the last few years. So one of the things that I'm really interested in is confidential processing. So I've been working, and my team have been working on confidential inferencing, the idea of being able to take encrypted data and to process it in the encrypted domain and return an encrypted result. So, to be able to say, here's my email, my email, I encrypt it, I give it to my language model, I say, answer me some questions on this, or write me an email based on this and send me the answer back, without a cloud provider ever being able to see that. Now, that for me is the direction we should be heading in. My background, where my legal background comes into this, is that I'm paranoid about people's data and paranoid about people's security. So I'd like to see a push towards effectively deregulating AI that benefits people individually, and regulating the hell out of AI where it's actually affecting people collectively. So I'm wittering on again, but a really interesting thing that has been going around LinkedIn today, around the fact that Zoom have changed their terms and conditions. So what it says is people are saying that Zoom have changed their personal conditions to enable them to use your data to train their AI effectively. And if you read into it, that's 80% true, maybe, but there is a lot of it in there. But what's interesting is, whilst this news story is coming out today, I went on the Wayback Machine and actually saw that even though people are looking at these terms and conditions dated 31st of July, actually the change took place in March. And so what's happened is a big company have gone out, completely changed the way in which they interact with you and your data. And so that means that any transcript of a call that I've had in Zoom, they're allowed to use and do what they want with. I've given them a license to do that, and I gave it to them 6 months ago. So that's the sort of thing that I would like to see regulated, because where the hell else am I going to go? I like Zoom. What am I going to do?
Well, plus, if you don't use Zoom, you're going to use Teams from Microsoft. You're going to do Google. I mean, you still end up not owning pretty much anything.
Exactly, and that, I think, is that is where the regulation is needed. Is transparency in data, security in data, because who at the moment? Where's the alternative? Where can I go at the moment to say, actually, yes, there might be some small Norwegian provider somewhere, and I believe there is a small Norwegian provider somewhere who will actually do it. But in terms of, I can't send a meeting link to someone, just using this example. I can't send a meeting link to someone for some obscure web conferencing platform in the far reaches of the internet. It's got to be a mainstream provider, but none of the mainstream providers provide me with the security I need. And it's the same with mail and all of these things.
And you just went into that famous convenience versus security, which
Exactly.
it's the sword that hangs on everybody's head here. Well, because we went on cybersecurity, and if you don't mind, maybe we stretch it 5 minutes more here.
Sure.
So you're not too concerned about the general AI, and it's not here. This could be an exercise to think about it, but definitely I like to say that intelligence may be not the right word to use with AI. Maybe we need to call it, I don't know, influence or something that start with the I, but it's not intelligence. So right now, and probably for when I produce this, it will be over by a few days. There is Black Hat, for people that know it. That's Hacker Summer Camp. We cover it as ITSP Magazine, as we were in London a month ago, as we were in RSA conference San Francisco. And AI is the new buzzword. It's AI is everywhere in security, AI-driven attack, AI-driven social engineering, because you can customize phishing email the way that human can't, because ChatGPT can probably do that. You can scrap the internet. So a lot of talks around the use of AI and large language model to deliver a cybersecurity attack. So what's your take on the security threat that are most maybe relevant for you nowadays coming from language?
So I think, of course, the ability to produce code quickly from prompts and that type of stuff, it's inevitably going to spark an increase in attacks. Of course it is, because what we're doing is we are, even the script kiddies now have got access to some really powerful stuff. But that means it's incumbent upon us elsewhere in the industry to use the same stuff to try and plug the holes. The fact is, it's always been that way. That exactly. Someone out there is trying to attack you. You're trying to defend against it. They will always use the most up-to-date weapon available to them, and that's been the same since people were throwing spears at each other. It's always someone throws a spear. Okay, so we'll design a shield. Great. Okay. Design a shield. So I've got a bigger bow and arrow now. And this thing escalates like that, right? So that's the way of these things. So, I think that in cybersecurity terms, we just have to continue to use the same tools and understand the tools. What worries me though, and you touched upon it there, is the social attacks, the human level attacks, because that's a bit more difficult. Because when, and again, phishing emails, I think that the phishing email thing has been a little bit overplayed, because it only really works if you understand the person that you're sending it to. So if it's a really well-crafted social engineering attack, then I might be able to craft something based on public things I find out about someone, maybe not. But actually, the ones which are more difficult on the human level are things like the deep fakes. And for me, I mean, I work in and around audio all the time, but deep fake audio for me is actually one of the ones that really keeps me up at night, because that is one where it's actually relatively straightforward to engineer an attack whereby, and we hear people talk about this, some of it's apocryphal, some of it isn't, but you get a call from your boss, you're the accountant, and you say, I need you to pay so and so, the invoice is coming in, I need you to pay them. So it's a two-pronged attack. You've got a legitimate looking invoice, plus your boss saying we need to pay it urgently.
Plus they spoof the phone number, so it looks like,
of course, exactly.
That's with that too.
Yeah, and we hear things about the ransom demands. I mean, there will be some of those, but again, but it's when you get into, because humans are not as good at detecting artificial intelligence. I mean, we know that AI can't. I mean, OpenAI had to withdraw their text checker because they discovered that their LLM text checker couldn't tell whether an LLM had written something or not. So even OpenAI can't tell. But the written things, that's why, as I said, I think social engineering, particularly deepfake audio, I think is going to start to be a real problem for people. And so we have to find ways of ensuring, that you've got a form of two-factor authentication in there, which means that, even just a password, if I phone you up and I ask you to do something unusual, you need to make sure that I include the word carrot in there somewhere, because if I've included the word carrot, it's real, because the deep fake audio won't know that. So that we're going to have to start thinking a little bit more laterally on the human to human interactions.
Yep. Or just hang up and call that person and be sure
Call them back. Exactly.
The bank is now going to call you, and now we're going to educating the users that, to be honest, they don't want to have this kind of thing. So it's a problem. I don't know. I could go in a lot of places, but we are at 35 minutes. I have to say, I really enjoyed this conversation because I think you brought some angles that are, honest. I think it's because you have that double hat of technologist and lawyer. So I appreciate that. I would like for you to come back again. I'm planning to have some more panels to talk about this. Yeah. So I would appreciate if you had good time and come back. And I don't know. So one last question, and then I'm going to close. Because undetectable voice spoofing. You're working on it, right?
Oh, it's coming. I mean, seriously, it's coming. So
is undetectable. Like I've played around with AI and with my voice, and it's scary good. Except that I make a joke, and my voice, when it's spoof, it doesn't have the Italian screw up word in English that I have, so you could detect me. But from an intonation and all that kind of stuff, it's scary. So how do you think an AI could detect the AI in that? Is there like an ID in the voice? Is it something that we just can't spoof?
So at the moment, and I say at the moment, I can tell you which engine generated your fake voice. So there's a blog post on our website about this. So we were showing how you can detect. So someone was spoofing Barack Obama, right? And so at the moment you can tell the engine, because the signature, the kind of what we call the X vector signature, kind of points back to an original engine. But already we're seeing that, because the way in which this stuff is being generated is changing, that signature is breaking down, and it won't be long before you don't need too much data about someone. You're absolutely right. There are certain things you've got to get them in different scenarios, how they laugh, how they cry, but for kind of day-to-day stuff, it's going to be really difficult to tell. And actually, you're probably only going to be able to do it if you've got some really good samples of what someone normally does.
And you can run a comparison.
You're going to have to do a comparison to get it, and look for those subtleties, because there's something in, as I'm sure you're aware, in avatar terms, this concept of the uncanny valley, that where we as humans, we don't mind avatars of cats. But what we really hate is an avatar which almost looks like someone, but isn't quite them. So it's a really weird thing. And so humans are actually quite good at detecting really subtle differences between a fake and the real thing. And it's about how do we capture that type of thing. It will normally be some sort of nuance of speech, but you'll have to be familiar. So if we're not familiar with the person, then detecting that tell is going to be really, really hard.
Wow. All right. And with that, I'm just going to disclose that I wasn't myself and Nigel wasn't. It was like our evil twins having a conversation here. No, this was real, as is real is Redefining Society Podcast. Stay tuned. Any way to connect with Nigel, you'll find it in the notes. There'll be a written up about our conversation as well. Please share it, subscribe, get in touch. And Nigel, thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to have you back on the show.
Thanks for having me on, Marco. Thanks a lot.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Stay tuned for some more kind of crazy conversation lately, actually. Bye.
Devo unlocks the full value of machine data for the world's most instrumented enterprises. The Devo Data Analytics Platform addresses the explosion in volume of machine data and the crushing demands of algorithms and automation. Learn more at devo.com. BugCrowd's award-winning platform combines actionable contextual intelligence with the skill and experience of the world's most elite hackers to help leading organizations identify and fix vulnerabilities, protect customers, and make the digitally connected world a safer place. Learn more at bugcrowd.com. Black Cloak provides concierge cybersecurity protection to corporate executives and high net worth individuals to protect against hacking, reputational loss, financial loss, and the impacts of a corporate data breach. Learn more at blackcloak.io.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Redefining Society, hosted by Marco Ciappelli. If you learned something new and this conversation made you think, then add this show to your favorite podcast player, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and share the ITSP Magazine podcast network with your friends, family, and colleagues. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey.